Here's the next thing. So, the issue of gun ownership and our obligation to love our fellow man. Let's talk about that one. Gun ownership and our obligation, the second of the two moral foundations upon which we're examining this issue. Love for fellow man. We must do good to all men, and especially to those who are of the household of faith. Galatians 6 verse 10. Certainly, protecting my fellow man from harm is an important part of loving my fellow man. This idea, where are you supposed to turn the other cheek? Well, that's fine, but you don't turn my cheek. Jesus said, if somebody smites you on this cheek, then you turn to him the other also. And the joke is always, well, he didn't say what to do after that. Yeah, I know. That's one way around all that. But you study that thing in context, and in context, he's not saying you're supposed to let people hit you. That's not what he's saying. The context is this, is if you are adjudicated under law and you are slapped by a magistrate or whatever, you're supposed to endure that. You're supposed to bear it and turn him the other cheek also. That's the context. But you know, when the Apostle Paul was beaten contrary to law, what did he say? He said, I'm a Roman citizen. You are beating me contrary to law. He asserted his Roman citizenship rights, didn't he? That's right. When Jesus was smitten before the high priest, he didn't say, oh, well, here's the other one, did he? He said, if I have spoken evil, bear witness of the evil, but if not, why smitest thou me? He challenged him. You are misunderstanding that verse if you think it means we're supposed to be pacifists that let people hit us and push us around. Besides all of that, the only principle government can act on is the principle of Moses' law, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. By the way, that was very merciful back then. Back then it was usually, your eyes and the eyes of your children and your children's children for one eye. I mean, they were really radical in their judgment principles. So the idea of eye for eye and tooth for tooth, there's always this joke, we'll all be blind and toothless. That's superficial nonsense. The point of that is judgment must be measured by the offense. That's the idea of that principle. Now here's where I'm going with this. This concept that I'm supposed to just let somebody slap me on this cheek and then say, well, here, you can have the other one also. Now that might be fine and good for me to do, but it's not for me, listen, okay, here you go. Call the police. You just been assaulted and battered, and you call the police. The police comes out and says, are you a Christian? You say, I'm a Christian. He says, oh, go ahead and hit him again. How many times have you hit him? I only hit him one time on one side of the cheek. Okay, well, turn the other cheek. Let him hit you again. It's nonsense. That's not what's meant by any of that. The point of that whole thing is that you're supposed to submit to authority. Jesus didn't hit him back. Jesus didn't call judgment. Paul didn't do that either. But he did challenge their abuse of power. But this idea is, I turn my cheek, but you don't turn my cheek. I don't turn your cheek. You don't turn my cheek. Government has no business turning your cheek and letting somebody else hit you again. That's wrong. The Bible says God gave government the sword in order to execute judgment against evildoers. That's what the sword's for. And we have it, of course, for self-protection. So anyway, protecting my fellow man is part of loving my fellow man, is it not? Did you know that gun ownership has risen steadily over the past few decades? I don't know if you're aware of that or not, but it has. It's in fact that it's at unprecedented levels right now. Especially in the last 10 years, by the way. This from the NRA in an article titled Gun Ownership at an All-Time High, Nation's Murder Rate at Nearly All-Time Low. Posted February 15, 2013, quote, concurrently, gun ownership and the number of privately owned guns rose to all-time highs. The number of privately owned firearms in the U.S. rising by over 120 million, including about 55 million handguns, and about 80% of which were semi-automatic. The 120 million new firearms included over 3.5 million AR-15s. Oh, my soul. Automatic rifles, can you imagine that? Tens of millions of other firearms that gun control supporters call assault weapons, along with countless tens of millions of ammunition magazines that hold 11 or more rounds. Oh, no! Oh my, it must be this must be prelude to Armageddon. The world's going to come to an end with so many people buying guns. With countless tens of millions of ammunition magazines that hold 11 more rounds. Did I say that already? Oh yeah, I did. Which gun control supporters think are too large. In the 3 months following President Barack Obama's re-election and his announcement that gun control would be a central issue of his final term in office, the number of firearm-related background checks conducted through the National Instant Criminal Background Check System rose 53% as compared to the same November-January period a year earlier. Did you follow all that? Did you hear me say lots of folks are buying guns? Lots and lots and lots, more than ever before. At the same time, quote from gun crime has plunged, but Americans think it's up, says study, found in a post I received from Vision to America, May 8, 2013. Quote, gun crime has plunged in the United States since its peak in the middle of the 1990s, including gun killings, assaults, robberies, and other crimes, 2 new studies of government data show. So in other words, the more people own guns, the less people are killed by them in terms of robbery and murder and stuff like that. That's interesting. It is apparent, therefore, is it not, that the more decent, law-abiding Americans own guns, and the more guns they own, the more dangerous it is for criminals in this world, and the more safe it is for the rest of us. Yeah. Therefore, clearly, I, as a good neighbor, as a law-abiding, love God and thy neighbor citizen, I have a moral obligation to arm myself as a measure or as a step to provide protection for my own family, for myself, for my friends, for my neighbors too. I think we want to keep that trend going, then we ought to encourage more people to buy arms and learn how to use them. I would be derelict in my duty to God and to man if I refused, to arm myself and learn how rightly to use those arms. It is my civic duty and responsibility to be a responsible gun owner.